Hello, I'm Daniela. You're listening to episode 71 of Historical Paranormal. In this episode, we'll explore the chilling legend of Bloody Mary and its origins. This will be part 1 of a 2-part video. The second part will be found on my main channel, Dazzling One, and the upload will appear on Wednesday, March 9th at 12 a.m. Central Standard Time. Bloody Mary is a game, one most common at a girl's slumber party. Nobody really knows how long people have been telling the story of Bloody Mary, but historians began attempting to trace the roots of the story in the 1970s. It is believed that the game started back in the 1960s. The participants enter a darkened room with a lit candle. She or he looks into a mirror while chanting Bloody Mary's name, or a phrase, a specific number of times. If the ritual is performed correctly, Bloody Mary might either appear in the mirror, reach out of the mirror and scratch the participant's face, or be released from the afterlife to haunt him or her forever. Other versions of the story include the mirror dripping blood, the participant's hair turning white, or the participant disappearing without a trace. Sometimes the ritual involves chanting simply Bloody Mary, whereas other versions involve chanting I believe in Bloody Mary or even I killed your baby, Bloody Mary. Experts searching for the origins behind the legend of Bloody Mary came up with several theories. A unique, quite Freudian take on the legend by folklorist Alan Dunn suggests that the story is an initiation ritual into womanhood. He notes that the Bloody Mary legend revolves around blood suddenly appearing, and that the ritual typically takes place in the bathroom with girls who are right on the edge of puberty. However, other stories put the origins of the story in a more historical perspective. Bloody Mary may have been one of the following women. First is Mary Tudor, Mary I of England, who put many Protestants to death for heresy, giving her the nickname Bloody Mary. History tells us Mary I, the Queen of England, was the ultimate Bloody Mary and is referred to as such in history books. She was the ruler during the Tudor period and called appropriately Mary Tudor. She gained the Bloody Mary nickname because she was a ruthless executioner. She was very quick to order the execution of people during her 5-year reign. She was a very strict Catholic, and her orders were usually against Protestants. Nearly 300 of them were burnt at the stake via her order. Even her father and brother could not escape, and were executed for promoting Protestantism, the second largest form of Christianity. Ultimately, her goal of a Catholic England failed. The next is Elizabeth Bathory, also known as the Queen of Blood, who was supposedly convicted for murdering hundreds of young girls so she could bathe in their blood to preserve her youth. Mary Worth, a witch executed in Salem witch trials, is another candidate for being Bloody Mary. One version is that she would kidnap runaway slaves and chain them up to perform rituals and use them as sacrifices in her barn. This was during the time of the Civil War. Locals found out that she was doing this, and she was captured and burnt at the stake. Her body was buried on her land, and the land became cursed. A few decades later, a farmer and his wife bought the land. When they were clearing the land to plant oats, they found a stone which was believed to be Mary's grave marker. They moved it up to the house. Soon all sorts of weird things started happening, paranormal things. Soon, the farmer realized the connection and tried to put the stone back, but he couldn't remember where it came from. They were tormented by the ghost for a few more years before their house burnt down. Another version of Mary Worth's tale seems like it was written specifically for the Bloody Mary game. They said Mary lived in a small cabin in the woods and would sell herbal remedies in the local village. Young girls started going missing. Some of the villagers consider themselves brave enough to wander up to the woods to see if the girls were at the cabin. Mary denied all knowledge, but this wasn't good enough explanation for the villagers. She was usually an elderly and haggard looking woman, yet she seemed to be looking more feminine and youthful, so they were extremely suspicious. One night, a miller's daughter was intrigued by a mysterious noise that only she could hear. Her mother was in bed, nursing a toothache, using one of Mary's herbal remedies. The daughter wandered off into the night. They shouted at her return, but it was like she could hear nothing but the noise. The father called upon some of the local townsfolk and noticed that there was light coming from the edge of the woods. Mary was standing next to a large oak tree holding a wand and pointing it toward the miller's home. The wand was glowing with light, and the daughter was walking around. The townsfolk proceeded to raid the area with pitchforks and guns. Mary broke the spell and ran back into the forest. The farmer shot a silver bullet at Mary and it caught her in the hip. They captured her and burnt her at the stake. As she was burning, she said a curse that if anyone said her name in a mirror, that she would be back. The townsfolk then came upon an unmarked grave of the missing children, and it was believed she used their blood to make herself youthful. Another variation changes the name from Mary Worth to Mary Worthing, or Mary Worthington. She was said to be a beautiful woman who was also very vain and spent a lot of time looking into a mirror. After a horrible car accident, she became disfigured. She could stand to look at herself and killed herself forever, tying her to her favorite item, a mirror. What are your thoughts on Bloody Mary and her origins? Do you think this is just child's play? Or perhaps is this based on a tale of a woman's pursuit for eternal beauty? Stay tuned for next week's episode, and if you would like to hear more about mirrors and their supernatural connections, tune in on Wednesday, March 9th, 2022 after 12 a.m. Central Standard Time to see the video on my main channel, Dazzling. Until next time.